I'm waiting for it to show that it's gone live. I always start talking too soon and then I rewatch the video and I'm like cut off in the beginning. So we're officially live. Welcome, Charmaine, to a Soul
Thank you for
Connection
having me,
call.
Safrianna. Yes.
Absolutely. So this is one of my regular Soul Connection calls where we have a loose topic that we're gonna start talking about today, which I'm not even gonna try to say the word. I think okay,
Glossolalia.
Glossolalia. That's about what I was gonna how about how I was gonna pronounce it. So we're gonna talk about glossolalia, aka light language today, because this was a request from one of my audience members, and I was like, I have the perfect person to have this conversation with, Charmaine. So Charmaine, go ahead and introduce yourself and then I'll introduce myself and we'll go from there.
Okay. I'm Charmaine Neighbors. I am the person behind Spinal Sentience, and I have been a healer and researcher in this mystical art and healing art realm for over 15 years. And I have just recently kind of come out into the community, my local community, and the world essentially with this. I have just been offering this to my closest friends and family, and I love studying anthropology and all of history, religions, world religions. Right now I'm in a Christian dominated area, so I'm studying each individual denomination and church locally. Um, and I do Reiki. I'm a Reiki master. I got my first Reiki attunement when I was 17, which is over half my life ago. I am a spinal energetics practitioner, which is the the weirdest thing I'd ever seen in the healing arts world. And I immediately was like, I need to learn everything about that. And so I did. And that has been amazing. I've been working with clients all over the world, um, locally in the United States and different states, and, as far as Singapore and England. So it's been so fantastic to really allow myself to come out into the world and be my true self and really
Mhm.
highlight all the things that I love and I'm passionate about and I'm good at,
Yeah.
and really bring that to the table for the benefit of myself, for the people that I work with, and for, Mother Earth, really, and the consciousness that we're all in right now. So,
Mm. I can't wait to talk about that today too. There's so many things I know the two of us need to talk about that are just like for our enjoyment, but also to introduce people to and show them that there are lots of different ways to see the world and to be in the world. So thank you for that introduction. I'm Safrianna Luna. I am the queer spirit guide, and very similarly to Charmaine, I've just more recently come out in terms of owning the fullness of my gifts. I just quit my therapy job 2 weeks ago. I am no longer a trauma therapist because I want to go full time with my own intuitive healing. Gosh, that made me think, when did I get my first Reiki attunement? I think I was 19 or 20. So you and I have both been working in the energy world for quite some time, and really just
absolutely.
like doing this fundamental work of shifting collective consciousness first by doing it for ourselves and coming fully into ourselves. So
Yes.
it's been a lot of self development work, hasn't it, to be able to come out and be this open and this bold?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I absolutely am here today because of the work that I've done for myself. And, you know, I feel like people ask me about getting Reiki attunements and stuff of like, what are the benefits? And they want to like work with people right away, which I think it can be fine. I'm really grateful to have the last almost 2 decades, um, as, having my Reiki attunement and really being able to work on myself first and foremost. Like, I am my own best client. I work on myself every day. And I also do light language, which is the whole point of this
Yes.
glossolalia thing. And I sing to myself all day, you know, especially when I'm alone. I'm constantly just like
I
singing.
saw that you did a
And
live earlier just singing in your car. Like you
yeah,
really have stepped into using the power of your voice. When
yes.
was the first time? So, yeah, talking about glossolalia, aka light language, aka speaking in tongues, right? I actually
Mhm.
remember my first experience. My sister spoke what I would now call light language.
Yeah.
I must have been like 17 or 18 and she's younger than me. And she was doing healing work on me intuitively and she starts
Yes.
speaking in tongues is how I viewed it at the time and I was like, "Okay, this is interesting, kind of weird, but it's my sister. I'm going to accept it." And then here I am like 15 years later and at the beginning of this year, I was in the middle of doing a channeling for people and normally I would just channel words of affirmation and guided visualizations and whatever around whatever theme I was doing. And it was we were upgrading, we were leveling to our next level up, and I remember this distinct moment. I heard these syllables start to come through, and my ego went, "Oh no, Safrianna, oh no, you're already weird enough. You're not about to do this." And then it just started coming out, and I was like, ego is still in the background going, "Shit, what's happening? Oh my god. Oh my god." Like, and so it's probably been about 6 months now that I've been speaking light language. And it's different every time for me and I've just learned to roll with it and my ego is slowly getting out of the way and I'm able to just use these healing sounds. But what was your moment where it started to like come through for you?
So I think that everyone experiences light language, or at least a lot of people experience light language when they're really young, and it's just nonsense talk. You know what I mean? It's
Mm,
nonsense talk. It's allowed, like, you know, kids do that kind of image, like imaginary make believe nonsense talk. You know, going into different realms in their imagination, and it's part of play. I think it's a natural, just part of play.
mm,
And so I think that a lot of people have experienced it in their life. And there is this interesting, you know, developmental stage where, at least, you know, in the culture currently, that you're really trying to get people or your kid to talk into words, you know, like say mama, you know what I mean? And I wonder how much, if we just didn't force or encourage our children necessarily to speak English or speak whatever language we speak, if they would have a more time to like marinate in that
mm-hmm.
language development, and
Right.
light language essentially be more a part of like their fluency. Um, so that's an interesting thing because, you know, my kids hear me do it all the time, and I recognize that they do it all the time too. But it's it's just a part of, you know, playing or singing or humming to themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
So my consciously being consciously aware of experiencing it was when I was probably still a teenager, and when I got my first Reiki attunement, I felt like I was tripping on mushrooms. I was completely sober, but the energy was so overwhelming, and I was so sober, and it was early in the morning, and then all of a sudden it was like this flood of energy while I was getting my attunement, and I was like, whoa, this is magic. um and from there, I think I got my second attunement just a couple months after that. And during that time before I got my Reiki attunement, or my Reiki master, I was doing Reiki sessions on my friends and my family and stuff like that. And I noticed that I would be like wanting to say things that didn't make sense. So I would just like whisper it so they couldn't hear me because I didn't know what it was, but I was
Right.
interested. My hearing brain was hearing it and was like, what is this? So I didn't want to be like, shh, I can't do it because I was like, still trying to learn about this whole thing, and definitely did not want anybody else to hear it because I wasn't like raised in a realm where I knew what channeling was. I'd heard about channeling, but that was always in like English words, and so I was familiar with
Hmm.
that concept. But I was like, what is this nonsense talk? And what am I doing? And so I would listen to it during my Reiki sessions and whisper it. And then I had a conversation with myself and I was like, what is this?
Hmm.
And I was basically demanding that I get answers in English, or I wasn't going to trust whatever this is because I'm a very discerning person. I'm a very skeptical person. I'm a very, like, I don't know who you are person. Yeah. So I was like, unless you can tell me exactly what this is in English, I'm just not going to do it because am I casting spells of like, like is
Right.
some, I don't want to be, I'm not being, I'm not consenting to this if you can't give me exactly what is happening. So, and I didn't have anybody to reference, um, or any information to reference about what it was
Hmm.
besides speaking in tongues, which I'd heard about in like, growing up in Christian church in the
Right.
Bible, in like and Pentecost in the Bible. And then I'd heard about Pentecostal Christians who speak in tongues. Um, and I'd seen videos and like the only other reference I had was people going into trances and like voodoo and stuff
Hmm.
like that, and then they'll speak in a different language. And it was always presented as in a like an anthropological way, of course, but it always seemed like very intense, and I didn't know what those energies were, and I was like, I don't know who is in alignment with this, so that's and so I didn't really do it for 10 years. I was
Wow.
like, no. And sometimes
Yeah.
it was like more out of curiosity. And I would ask people anytime I met anyone that I thought might be able to tell me something about it, I would ask them about that. But really, I didn't get any answers for like 10 years. So,
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those things like our understanding of it might even be different because, looking at cultures across the world, this practice or this skill or whatever we want to call it shows up in a lot of different cultures, right? And we call it different things. And
mm-hmm.
it has been a valid like spiritual expression in many cultures, but I think the one that I was raised in was a Christian, sort of Christian household. Like we didn't go to church, but we had all of the beliefs about sin and demons and all of that. So I stayed like as soon as I was old enough to take that in. So like about I mean, I've talked before about my spiritual and religious trauma. Like as early as 4, I remember feeling like there's something wrong and bad with me because that was the message I was getting. But
Yes.
I completely cut off all of that imagination and play. I think it is so beautiful. And Abigail commented that her son speaks in
Hi,
this light
Abigail.
language in this play as well, which I think is so like if we nurtured our children into that, it would
Yeah.
be an entirely different thing. And I didn't have that nurture, so I didn't have any consciousness of it until after I'd heard it for the first time and someone else had called it light language. So we're actually coming in from different angles because you were doing it and didn't know what you were doing. And I knew what it was because I'd seen it demonstrated from other people, but then the way it was coming through me was still different. I was still speak like what's really interesting for me is that every time I have spoken in light language since this has come back online, we'll call it coming back online because it's always been
Yeah.
there and
Yeah.
probably cut off, but it has been different sounds and syllables and words every single time. And
Yeah.
that I find really interesting because I have heard some people who use light language that they seem like every time they channel, they are saying some of the same phrases. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you follow them and you really listen to them, you can hear like they're using the same stuff each time. Like they have sort of a repertoire of words that they call through. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's that like for you? Like is it different every time or do you have sort of these utterances that you return to?
Abigail and I spoke about this, and I love what she had to say about it. And I do follow now that I can with social media. I can follow other people that speak language and kind of discern in my body like how does that feel to me. And I'm over the it's weird thing, so I can just like feel it in a different way. And I do think that there's like different dialects, for sure. And I think that there's different energies behind different light languages because I do. So it's like the Pentecostals. So this side note, but I just went to the Pentecostal church for the first time on Sunday because I didn't realize there was one locally. And so I went to it to have the experience of what were they like, what would it sound like? What did it feel like? And I won't be going back, but it was a good experience to have as like a knowledge reference,
Yeah.
Um, so yes, for example, the preacher at that church was speaking in tongues in between English words, and I was, very well guarded. I was open to the experience, but I'm not looking to absorb any of that.
Right.
But I do think that it has a mesmerizing kind of, like vibration. And it was very interesting to I would go back just to like study it more. I wouldn't go back to experience light language in like ooh, kind of way. But and then I've seen other people's light languages, and like their words, what are the words that they speaking, what is like kind of their like preachy message, you know what I mean? Not that everybody's preachy, but like where are they in alignment? And then there is a way that that light language can come through. And I do not believe that everything is love and light. I've been in this for way too long and had so many different experiences that not all of it is love and light, and in fact, it shouldn't be all love and light, and that is not even a possibility in the universe. So I think that um, there, for my personal experience, as far as like tonal tones or syllables or sounds, um, I when I first started doing the singing specifically, because I was requesting a teacher to learn to sing,
Hmm.
and I couldn't find one. I was asking Spirit Realm for a physical teacher, and then I couldn't find a physical teacher. So I was like, okay, how about like a spirit teacher on singing? And that's when like Hathor came and was like, okay, like I will initiate you or reinitiate you, or I don't even know. She didn't say those words or anything to me, but like here. And so my vocal cords started getting adjusted. So I made these like really weird sounds, and I was doing it by myself because it was weird. It sounded weird. It wasn't like,
It's
it was
weird
a voice
at first at least.
lesson. You know what I mean? And vocal muscle adjustments. I don't know. And after a while, because I'd never been like a good singer and at all, I was tone deaf, and I'm not sure I'm not tone deaf now, honestly, because I'm looking to seek a professional singer so she can hear me and be like, oh, you are on key or are not on key, because I just honestly don't know. I just allow it to come through. But so originally it was just words kind of thing, and now I do words sometimes, but like and by words they're not like there's not like a dictionary, and I don't know what
Right.
they mean. And I do think that there's a lot of words when I say them, they sound like I've heard them before, like I could recognize them when they come through. But also I feel like there's different dialects that come through,
Hmm.
and some they feel very different vibrationally in my throat. Um, some are more like glottal, or like some are
Mm-hmm.
more like kind of like clicky kind of sounding. And it will be like when I'm talking in that one version, it'll be kind of like all that style. And then
Mm-hmm.
another time something will come through and it'll be all that style.
Yes.
Um, yeah. And then the singing has sometimes it's mostly just very soothing sounding. But sometimes it'll kind of get like more like there should be drums involved, like more
Mm.
you know? And so I'm working with my guides, and I do writing in the morning, and I talk to them and I ask them questions, and then I hear words and I write them down. And that's how I get my answers on all these things. What is this light language I speak? What is this? Like, who am I in alignment with? Because obviously, I want to make sure I'm in alignment with something that I'm actually wanting to be in alignment with, and I don't
Right.
want to be involved in any weird soul contracts that I could have agreed upon at some point that I'm unaware of now. Past lives, or even this life or whatever. So I try to get all those little. I get very nitty gritty about it all.
I love that
So
you have that attention to detail though. Like you are really, really, really discerning your energetic boundaries, which is super important in the spiritual realm to know our energetic boundaries. So I think
yeah,
that's wonderful.
and I was listening to your guys' conversation earlier on your live, and she was talking about just checking in with her own soul and what does her own soul feel like. And that is something that I am working on, actually, because I feel like I have so much fun with my friends in the spirit realm that I'm almost like, what is my identity
Yeah.
as a soul? Because I get caught up in like all this like fun that we have, you know? And so
Yes.
I'm trying to like, and I'm not doing a very good job at it right now, but I am working on having alone time with my soul, like just me, instead of trying to like make it a party, So
Right. It can be really appealing when we start to work with guides to
yeah,
again want to externalize that source
yeah,
because we're so used to the authority figure. That's what's kind of
yeah,
programmed or installed in us from the time that we're children in this society is like, well, listen to the adult, or, oh, they're in charge, they're smarter than you, they have a degree, they have this, they have that, like all of this external validation that we end up seeking. And we have to come fully back to ourselves and anchor into our soul and our energy. And yeah, like guides feel really great. We're like, yay, finally somebody that is in alignment with me because they're there and they're attached to our blueprint and they're there to support us.
hmm
And they are ours, right? They're our guides. They are there for
hmm
us. And who is
and
the us in it, right? Yeah, we've got to go back to that. And that can be really, really hard after so much like conformity and like just layering up on top of that core self.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, good, like someone I don't have any reference point on. Like, I mean, I do because I'm me, but like, it's not like I can look up who I am in history books or something. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
even like the visions of seeing through other people's eyes and their lives and stuff, I don't know if that's actually like my past life. I could just be like
Right.
tapping into like Akashic record stuff. I don't actually know who I've been in a past life at all. I've seen things, but I'm not gonna say that was me. Maybe
You
I was
can't
involved in that.
100% know for sure. Like you
Yeah,
can't other than feeling into the core essence of who you are. And that I know that you've been dying to have this conversation with me. This is a
yes,
perfect segue. Oh, I recently came into the knowledge that I am something known as a split existence being. So I have two bodies on different planets with two different blueprints for those bodies, but essentially the same soul. And oh my gosh, has that been disorienting? But I'm starting to recognize that I'm not the only one. And so talk about like connecting with yourself. I'm literally trying to figure out how to connect with the other half of myself
Yes.
And that is so like that was not introduced to me from within myself though. I always felt this homesickness and whatnot, but um it was externally brought to my attention, and then I had to still do the work of discerning it in myself, because boy was I was like, I'm not on board with this, I don't like this. Right, that was ego, of course. But then once I
Hmm.
sat with the information and I really went and connected with my soul, I was like, oh, I see it now. And I connected with my own energy and my own energy cord between me and was able to discern that it was true. And
Hmm.
most people aren't running around split existence. It's not like super duper common. Not super duper common, but there are those of us that are. I know in my circle, I'm not the only one. There's at least one other that I know of. But um, getting to know your soul is hard, even with one with one body. So like, go easy on yourself, people.
Yeah.
Go easy on yourself. So yeah, like if you have specific questions on that, please feel free to ask, because I don't even know where to start with it half the time. But yeah,
Can I share my experience with that?
absolutely.
Okay. So I have done Reiki on many, 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 many people, and I can feel their energetic bodies, right? I can feel their chakra system, and I can feel the energy in their body. So I had just gotten my Reiki attunement. Maybe had it for like a month, and one of the first people that I had done Reiki on, I was doing Reiki on him, and I couldn't feel anything inside his body. I could feel it like right here, kind of like, and I don't even remember how much I could feel up here, honestly, because I was like too overwhelmed by there being nothing inside his body, and I was like, "What is happening?" And I was so new that I really couldn't figure out what it was, and I just went through it and went through the motions, and then at the end, I was like, "So how was that for you?" Like trying to ask him what he felt. And he's like, "You didn't feel anything, did you?" And I was like, "No, I didn't. Why?" And he just didn't tell me. He just didn't tell me. And I was like, and maybe he didn't even know. Maybe he had received energy work before and people told him that. So that was when I was 17. And I had never stopped wondering about that. And then I, read books about people getting like hypnotized for their past life regression, and people saying, "Oh, I've a split soul, and my soul is not completely here all the time." And I was like, "Oh, this might be it." You know what I mean? And then just last week, a lady came up to me at the farmers market where I put this sign up and I offer healings and stuff. And she said, "Do you do readings? Because someone just told me that my daughter is has two different bodies and she's living in two different bodies. And if I'm correct, her daughter is paraplegic
Mm.
and in this wheelchair." And I think that's who she was talking about because the way that she was telling me stories about how she interacts with the world. And I was like, "Oh, this is so interesting," right? So I don't know more on that yet, but and my experience with you and you telling me that. And so all of these questions I've had around this, like, what is this split existence? How does it like, show up in the world? Why does it show up in the world? What is the benefits to it? The best answers I've had is from receiving or reading, books from other
Right.
people's experience. So I'm so excited for you to continue on with your story of
Oh,
this, and what does it feel like to you, and how do you figure out when your time on earth is more occupied and all that stuff?
yeah, this is very new to me, so I want to be so clear that I'm only an expert on myself, and that's still under development. Because it
Mhm.
was right after my 34th birthday this year, so June of this year, that I had signed up to do a blueprint reading with Red Moon Eagle, and she was just talking with guides and connecting in, and she's part of the Body of Nine community, and I really respect her. And she she's like, okay, let's just lead with the hard part, basically, right? So your split existence, and she tells me where my other body is. More on that later, because that's a very, I want to get your thoughts on it. um
Okay.
Kind of controversial view in the Starseed community that I know, as I start to speak on it, like, it's gonna make waves.
Oh,
And
good.
I'm
Okay,
I'm a
good.
change maker. I'm here for that. So
Yeah.
Abigail said the benefit is to have as much soul experience as possible. Yeah, that's definitely one of the benefits. But I wanted to come in and help with the Earth Ascension mission. And so I made a soul contract to incarnate in with my family here, my biological family here, to help them repair their bloodline, so that I could basically, in a karmic exchange, I'll help you repair your bloodline so I can party on Earth and help with the Ascension mission. I joke that I'm pretty sure I came here for cooked food, because because where my other body is, we eat a whole lot of fruit and nuts, and that is most of what we eat, and it's raw. And yeah, so I joke that I came here for the hot food. My human design is hot food digestion, so I
I
deliberately
get
picked
it.
that. But one of the interesting things is, because my original, or my true form, is not actually human, I've borrowed human memories, and I've borrowed, I essentially was like, what astrology do I want? And I picked a very deliberate date with my birthday, because it's a portal. It's the 6-6
Mm.
portal, which is the Clarion
Hmm.
portal, which is the starseed imprint of the truth speaker. So I was very intentional with that. And that
Mm.
is my other blueprint, is the Clarion. My earth blueprint, my human body blueprint, is the creatrix, which is more of the networker and like a people person.
Hmm.
So I am constantly at odds with that. And I also
Hmm.
have two different sort of energetic layers because of that. I have the truth speaker and the indigo energy. And then I have a more like, I'm going to help walk you to the door and put your hand on the door and show you the way. And these things butt heads, because the indigo's like, you've got this. This is your mission. Go. And then that other energy is like, I'm nurturing and kind. And so I'm literally like, I've experienced so much tug of war in myself. I also assigned myself to be a Gemini. Ha ha, joke on me here. Like,
Oh,
I'm literally a Gemini. Um, but yeah, I wanted to help with the Earth Ascension mission. And so I made this contract to come in. I don't, my other me is like, I'm not fully ready to connect with you. And besides, like, you're meant to enjoy your experience on Earth, not be
yeah.
caught up in missing home. And that's been a really hard thing for me. Part of what I've really deeply connected with is butterfly medicine. So my best friend elsewhere, I'm just going to call it elsewhere for now. My
Okay.
best friend elsewhere is Centaurian, and shows up here as butterfly. So whenever I see a butterfly, I know
Oh.
that that is my best friend Chada coming to say hi. But remembering that and having that soul remembering of that, and then connecting my energy more fully, I literally pulled a dagger out of the energetic cord between me, because there was a disruption.
Hmm.
And then there was all of this, like, I really had to have a good cry and get it all out, because I was like, I miss that place, and this me is never going to get to go physically be in that place. Like, that's
Yeah.
never going to happen. And
Yeah.
so that's like the pain point of it. Red, Red shared with me, she's like, your guides tried to talk you out of this, but you were like, I've got this. And I'm like, that is the most me thing I could have possibly heard. So that gave it some more credence. I was like, I would be the one that my guides are like, nah, maybe this is a little much. And I'm like, no, I got this. Because I love to do the most. I love to do the most. But yeah, it's I was able to, because Red was kind of helping me, and I'm a natural number 9, so my eyes are in the back of my shoulders. So I literally
Hmm.
am my own blind spot. It was really affirming to have someone else help me process this. But I have a sleep wake cycle where I'm awake for 40 days. 40 days here is like, it's technically 60 days here is 1 day there. So I'm awake for 40 days and then asleep for 20 days. And the way that I know I'm waking up is usually extreme pain. Yay. I would really like to unwork this.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with human bodies, and we're like, we love pain. Let's have everything, all the alchemy be pain. Like, can we can we come up with something else? Because I'm ugh. But like I'll have a very specific kind of headache that tells me I'm
Mm-hmm.
like waking up there. And then my body pain gets worse here because I'm holding, like I'm literally holding awake energy in two places at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting ready to fall asleep again. And I think about 10 to 15 days, I'm still kind of trying to map it because again, this is so new.
Yeah.
And I'm a very down to earth person. In like the skepticism, I'm so with you on the skepticism. I'm like, really? So I literally went back when Red shared, like, oh, pain is sort of your, like you have some kind of particular pain that tells you. I literally
Mm-hmm.
went back because I message my partners a lot when I have migraines. So I just keyword searched the word migraine and mapped all of the dates. And sure enough, it was like every 60 days, I would have this like killer freaking world ending headache. And I'm
Wow.
like, okay, well, we're starting to get more proof in here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like it is definitely still something new. And if anyone else is like thinking that they are going through something like this, know that you're not alone. Like there are plenty of people out there that are talking about this stuff, but I think that we've misconstrued a lot of this as like schizophrenia or like different disorders. And like, if anyone knows me, like really, really knows me, you know that I am not the kind of person that would just go tout this kind of thing or talk about this kind of thing, knowing that there's so much criticism in the world unless I really, really believe it. And I do. I do.
Yeah.
So, do we want to get into the controversial where elsewhere is?
Um, yes, let me ask little question real quick though.
Hmm.
Okay, so so how much of that information you told me just now is from you receiving it from yourself, and how much of that information is you receiving it from Red Feather? Because I'm not familiar with her work.
Hmm.
And how do you communicate those truths, those informations to yourself? How do you receive it? Do you receive it visually? Do you receive it through writing? Do you receive it?
I usually receive more of a knowing, so I'm clairsentient, so I have that clear sense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this was introduced to me from Red, and there's still like the controversial stuff. I'm still determining for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But the split existence stuff I have been able to confirm. And
Mm-hmm.
that has been through doing like muscle testing in my human body to feel
Mm-hmm.
into things. So my soul, yes, I lean back towards my 9 in my shoulder blades. And then
Okay.
I lean forward when it's a no. Like I almost trip
Okay.
forward.
Okay.
And so I have worked on anchoring and connecting my channel. And connecting my channel and seeing that dagger and whatnot was all me. Like what was shared to
Mm-hmm.
me by Red was your split existence, your other body is here, which that's where I'm like, okay, all right. Still on the fence with that one. But um other than that, like those micro details, most of it has come from me.
Okay. Cool.
She was doing like a big broad blueprint reading with me, which goes into, she does, if you know your body of 9, that's like part of it. She gets a little bit into why you picked that particular body.
Yeah. I'm
But
I'm a two, by the way. I guess.
you're what?
I'm a two, I guess.
You are a 2. Have you gotten that officially diagnosed from Susan and Martin?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
two and 9 pairs. Like we just, I don't know why, but 2s and 9s, tight. All of my
If you don't
besties
know
are
what we're
2s.
talking about, you can get the book called Body of Nine. It's from AMA Publishing. So, and we're both authors from AMA Public Letter on AMA Publishing. So,
I'm not on AMA, but I was an
Oh, you're
Indigo
not?
because I was
Oh,
with Monique in another book we were in together. But yeah, I'm
okay, so you
familiar
know
with
the names.
AMA.
Okay,
Yes. In the
great.
same realm of the multi-authored world and have shared
Okay.
co-authors. So,
Sweet.
yeah. Um it is a really good book, but you really want that hands-on to get someone to confirm for you because yeah, we pick a body vessel for a reason to help us do the work that we do, and twos have very, very powerful bodies for connecting energetically. So that makes sense why you picked that since you do this like one-on-one work with people. But yeah, so she gets into energy frequencies, she gets into sort of life path themes and things like that, and then your guides. So she confirmed several of my guides for me, like my I'm actually wearing a bracelet for him. My guardian, my like closest blueprint ally, I call him Brother Michael because he's of Archangel Michael's team. Um, and so she was able to say like you have these guides that are attached to your blueprint in particular, and I was able to confirm, oh yep, that one makes sense, that one makes sense, but was finally someone else put names to it, if that makes
Mm,
sense. So there was like
yeah.
some discernment I already had, and then it was like being reflected back from someone else. So yeah, I appreciate her and her work, and there's still stuff that I'm like still testing into with myself and still want to have dialogues with others because there's so many different ways to see this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that we're going down into the nitty gritties of how we experience this and like the details, because I feel like those are the types of things that are really hard for people that already are in this realm or are not in this realm to understand. Like, how do they know? How do they experience this? You know, because I feel like when we get really down into those types of details, then they might be able to recognize some of those types of things inside themselves, because there's not, I mean, there's plenty of books written on it throughout history, but there's not a book of how you're going to experience it.
Yes, and every
And
blueprint is unique.
yes, absolutely. And so I love that you're sharing that with me, because I love connecting more with intuitive people such as you and Abigail, and hearing the experiences that they are experiencing regarding these same things that I'm experiencing in a way, because we're doing it differently. We're experiencing
Yeah.
it differently. And yes, I would love to hear um, your controversial experience of my husband. We're on our call. Would you like to come say hi?
Hello.
He
Hi.
absolutely does not want
Welcome.
to.
He's like, "No, I do not want to be live." That's my boy too. He's like, "Do not
Absolutely
perceive me."
not.
Even though he's my retreat chef and he's going to have to be perceived eventually. We're going to get there. So Red introduced me to the concept. Now, this I had always known, and
Mm,
people are going to there are going to be people who disagree with me on this because it's all over the internet, this other
okay.
view. So,
Okay.
I think
Oh,
Lemire.
good.
Huh?
I'm on the other. Everything that I've studied about mine on the internet is not great. So,
Yeah, like
yeah.
there's so much out there that I just think is like not, I don't know, it's outdated. It's just outdated is the way I see it. Um, I have always felt like, I don't know if you've ever went out and gotten a Lemurian crystal. They're not from Lemuria. They're not from Lemuria. Lemuria is another place. So that I firmly believe, and that is where my other body supposedly is on
Okay.
planetary Lemuria.
Okay.
Um, I definitely, when I test into it, I've never thought Lemuria was here. What I think
Mhm,
is that we had a bunch of souls during different cataclysmic events on other
mhm,
planets that have come here. And they
mhm,
have soul level memories of the cataclysmic events that happened in
mhm,
places like Atlantis or
mhm,
Lemuria that
mhm.
we think and we are searching for, like, where is it here? But I don't think it's
Mhm,
here.
mhm.
I think it is elsewhere. So that's
Okay.
kind of the controversial view because most, when I do any research into what other people think online, like Lemuria and Atlantis and like these lost civilizations, people think are here and are like trying to dig around the ocean and this and that to like prove that they exist, and we're not finding any proof really,
Yeah.
other than mentions of it, and obviously like um and etymologically, I always confuse the bugs, the study of bugs and the study of language, because they're like one letter off.
Yes, etymology.
Yes. You know, when we look at the history of the word
Yeah.
Lemurian, like, and we have lemurs, like, there's nothing in me that can disagree with the idea that maybe a bunch of Lemurians incarnated together as a soul group or a soul family in a particular region on Earth at some point and kept some of their light language or their soul level language. Like, it doesn't seem that weird to me. So, yeah, that is where I supposedly am on Lemuria. And when I do test in, even if it is not Lemuria, which I think it very well could be, but
Mm-hmm.
my other self does not give me much confirmation, I'm more able to confirm things like the diet and what I'm doing there. And
Yeah.
so I know, like, I picked my North Node, South Node very intentionally because my South Node represents what I'm doing there, which is being a
Mm.
Leo, which is hilarious because I'm like a bard. I'm literally like this little hobbit bard person, though my true form is unsurprisingly a unicorn, a muricorn. I'm like a unicorn mermaid hybrid thing.
Yeah.
But currently I am incarnated there in a more humanoid like person body, which makes a lot of sense with how here on Earth some of my
Uh-huh.
trauma and disconnection with my own body has shown up.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's been me trying to make sense of like not feeling at home, not feeling right in my body, like trying to literally cut myself off from that connection because it was overwhelming. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I am so curious on your thoughts about this. Like I said, it's a little bit spicy compared to a lot of what's out
Well,
there.
I mean, so I think that the craziest thing that I can't wrap my head around is the time space thing and how we experience time and space on Earth currently, right? But at some point, mathematically and, in other, you know, philosophies, time and space don't exist and everything is compressed and like exists at once.
Yes.
And so you could very well be living in Lemuria right now because where are we experiencing time and space? Right here, right now. It's a very weird thing. I'm
Oh,
not
where
going to
is
try to
my
judge people here.
notebook when I need it? I literally, so my creatrix blueprint, my human blueprint,
Yeah,
I am meant to teach time codes to people. And so I have this whole framework of time as the Triforce. If you've ever seen the Triforce from Zelda, it's got the three triangles. And the bottom
yeah,
line I see is as our perception of the past into the future, like a timeline. But
mm-hmm.
up here is our present awareness or our present moment, you know, wherever we're falling on that line. But then in the middle is this void space where time doesn't exist. There is no perception of time and it's all
Mm.
happening all at once. So I have this whole beautiful drawing I'll have to share with you at some point.
Yes.
Maybe we can even do a chat on time codes.
Yeah,
But yeah, time, and I have this deep understanding as a natural number 9 that we're all just God, and we're all just God being bored and like seeing what we can do because
yeah,
we self-destructed ourselves to play and we're slowly returning to unity. Slowly, right? And we can understand as intuitives and spiritual people, like you can feel the quantum shift immediately. You can leap onto a new timeline, but the earth body still takes so much time to catch up,
yeah.
so much time to catch up sometimes, and it can be really really frustrating when we're like, please, like, I saw this, I had this vision, I was there, but why am I not here? And so yeah, it is this really like weird, how do we make sense of time and space? But I have this deep inner knowing that everything is true and everything exists.
Yeah,
So I also accept that my truth may not be someone
yeah,
else's truth, and there's a timeline for them where that is 100% true because it's all true.
Right. And that is such a weird concept, but I'm spending more time in my brain on that concept. And maybe that there are other holographic worlds that we experience our soul in. And of course there are. And maybe it's all overlapped on Earth. Maybe Earth is just like a sphere that planets are like holographed onto. I don't know,
We don't
honestly.
know. This is why we're
It's,
playing, right?
but it's because I experience, like in my dreams, for example, when I don't remember my dreams because I try not to spend too much time there because I get really wrapped up in it. But um, I will be somewhere in my dream, and then while I'm there in that dream, I remember all the other dreams that I've had in that spot, and I recognize that I'm on. It's not the same Earth. It's a different version of the Earth, but it's a familiar place to me in this body, as if I've been there in this body in this real life, but it's not the same. And but then I remember that all the memories from that place. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's so weird. And there's like 5 different distinct places that I go to. And it's just the whole concept is very confusing and interesting. And
Yeah.
it's a fun thought experiment. And I don't get too wrapped up in it because I love to try to figure things out. I'm like such a figure it out person. And also, like, we don't need to use words to describe everything. It's a little too
Yeah.
trouble.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I'm like such a skeptical person here.
Yeah,
But when I really tune in at a soul level, I know that it's all true and I know that it all exists and I know that we
yeah,
have access to it if we choose to. And some of us don't want to choose to have access to all of it, which is why we didn't pick a natural number 9 body.
yeah,
Thank you very much. I I still laugh about your guides tried to talk you out of it. And then here I am in my
yeah.
natural number 9 body, just experiencing, like I always say, for those that are not natural number 9s, the best way you can understand what we experience is to watch the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once,
Yeah,
because that's my reality.
yeah,
Not in a disconnected, like out of my mind way anymore. I used to experience a lot of dissociation because of the trauma I was experiencing here. But now
yeah,
it's just, oh yeah, I can pop wherever I want, whenever I want, and that's cool. But
yeah.
it's not like how I lead in the world. It's not how I show up all the time. So I'm still figuring out why and where
Hmm.
I'm meant to talk about the split existence piece. But I just had a client sign on with me who is a collective in a human body, and they're trying to make sense of
Hmm.
that. So it's like this is something we need to talk about it because there are other people having these experiences, and I signed up to be the brave one to go first and talk about it publicly in a lot of ways. So
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else that's said I am a split existence person. There's people that are outwardly humans and they're channeling a different entity that is
mhm,
not them. There are people that, are outwardly living, a as like um dissociative identity disorder, which used to be
mhm,
called multiple personality disorder. There's outwardly people like, you know, feeling like they can be different people, like, whatever, kind of like a chameleon or something like that, which I feel like I'm very much a chameleon. So there's throughout history and throughout, the history of psychology and like trying to study the mind, there's been so many records of people that have this type of am I just me, and also if we know that we're like all just a drop from the ocean of consciousness, then are we not just like me and a million other versions of
exactly.
me? And I'm so excited for you to like come out and talk about this specifically because in my study I haven't experienced anyone personally that is, is in this experience and is like kind of like, stable. And I know you just like switched a big aspect of your life, but that wasn't like because you were
But mentally
unstable.
stable. Like I've done the
Yeah,
shadow work, and I think that
yeah.
if someone had told me I was split existence, or I'd even come into the, because again, there's so much. We're gonna have to do another chat on like the collective stuff too, because I feel like that's really important. Um, but if I was where I was 10 years ago, forget it. Like I would have felt crazy, right? I would have been like, no, I would have no self-acceptance. I wouldn't even have been able to look at it. And I do want to say, like, for the record with this, that there was a time here where I had a diagnosed dissociative disorder and may have had a split part very briefly, because I was in such a traumatic situation and I literally could not, like, I couldn't turn a corner in my home without somebody abusing me, like, just to put it in a nutshell. So I had a split. I still am not conscious. I was consciously aware that I was dissociating, but not consciously aware that I was saying anything during that time. But I was told I had a alter who was like defending me and who was very mean
Mhm.
and angry, like, get get the f away basically. But I have no
Yeah.
conscious memory of that, so I do know the difference between dissociation and this
Mhm.
split existence thing. And there is a
Yeah.
difference. And one is based completely in mental health stuff, right? Because it's a
Mhm.
trauma response. And the other is a soul identity. And we can be empowered in it. And it doesn't, like, again, if it's just a soul identity piece, it doesn't have to be hugely impactful or like devastating. It can just be a, yeah, just like, yeah, I'm a Gemini, or yeah, I'm a two, I'm a natural number two. Like, it's just another aspect of me and my blueprint,
Mhm.
because my soul decided it wanted to party on planet Earth and eat pizza, and that's what I'm having for dinner tonight. I'm very excited. We're gonna home make pizzas. I love hot food. Let me tell you, other me, so sick of eating berries and nuts. Like they're great once in a while, but when that's your whole diet, ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm here to have fun and to be in good health and to help other people have fun and be in good health. And so I if sharing my story in a stable way can help one person love themselves a little bit more and find inner peace and differentiate between dissociation and soul stuff, yay. I will be that
Right.
weirdo and I will let this freak flag fly high and proud.
Absolutely. And that was when, like my mental health questions about hearing things. Um, am I like, I was like, is this schizophrenia? And is this like a spiritual experience? And I asked the psychologist, and her response was schizophrenia is inherently negative to the person having it. And it tells them bad things, it tells them to hurt
Mhm.
themselves or hurt other people.
Yep.
And a spiritual experience is generally positive and
Empowering.
makes the person feel good and empowering. And I have, heard of stories of people that went from having a spiritual experience and then the coin flipped and it turned into a schizophrenic experience. And I feel like, and like, Kundalini experiences where people had very negative experiences, and very positive experiences. And I think that comes down to being able to have the bandwidth to process experiencing who you are differently, because we're still very much hardwired in these physical bodies. And what, like, for example, when I do spinal energetics, I can't do it on everybody.
Right.
If there's contraindications for doing spinal energetics on people, whereas Reiki and the other modalities I do, there are no contraindications because it works specifically with the hardwiring of this physical body
Mhm.
in relation with the spiritual body. So, if there's a lot to be said with how important this body is for us to experience this world. And when we have trauma in our life, it physically rewires our bodies.
It does.
And so if we have this kind of like, duality experience or this, extra abilities and stuff like that, our hardwiring might not be able to support it. And
Right.
when we work on our hardwiring, then we can get to a place where we can support these other aspects of who we are. And I love that there's so many people that are really, experiencing their extra sensory experiences and working on their physical bodies, because we are the temple of God,
Yes.
and there and it is important to keep your temple clean. It is
Yes.
important to, structurally keep it sound, but it's also great and important to throw a giant party in your temple and let the confetti get everywhere. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So it's not about like being pure or
We
like,
need balance.
yeah, you need balance and stuff like that. But so I'm glad that you got through that, because I see people and I wonder, you know, how I can tell that their hardwired experience in this body isn't able to work well with that. And
Yeah.
it's a karmic experience, I'm sure, that they need to have in some way.
Right.
I think that we don't choose all of our experiences in life, but I do think that we come into this body with certain experiences that we want to experience. And
Hmm.
that doesn't necessarily mean we want good experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I fast tracked my trauma here so that I could get to the work, like the helping other
Mhm.
people, which really helping other people just comes from me shining my light, which I had to do a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very important point is that we are in a human body vessel, regardless of whatever's happening in here, up here.
Yeah.
We are in a human body vessel, and the human body vessel can only contain the energy that we support the body in containing. And if
Yeah.
we fuel it all the time with junk, right? If we're partying hard all the time, we get run down because we need to
Mhm.
keep the circuitry clean. We need to keep the container open so that we can receive more clarity and receive more spiritual experiences or upgrades or enjoyment, just enjoyment. Like we can't enjoy if we're shut down in our body.
Absolutely. And on the same coin, the other side, we cannot be all in the physical or all in the spirit realm all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Yep.
not what we came here to do. We didn't come here to come live in our other soul body in a different place, or our
Exactly.
higher self version that we think is the best all the time. Like, we need to be able to allow ourselves to fall or to purposely just lay down away from it. You know what I mean? Like, because I spend a lot of time in doing spirit realm stuff, sometimes I need to be like, okay, you need to like do the dishes, which is like the bane of my existence. But that is my freaking discipline in this
Right.
body. It's like doing the dishes, like, attending to these physical things. And I'm like, but there's such more interesting things I could be doing. Guess what? Your house still needs to be cleaned. And, so
Yeah.
and that is in the like Rosicrucian tradition. And I'm not Rosicrucian and I'm not an expert, but from what I've studied, that is actually Christ consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
is the balance between the physical experience of life and the non-physical experience of life, and knowing that we are on this physical earth right now experiencing these
Yes.
physical bodies, and we need to be balanced in that. And yes, we can teeter totter on both sides, but this is the centeredness.
Yeah.
So, opposite of what I learned in Christianity, being on the fence is actually a good place. Not jumping to
Yeah.
one side all in or the other. It's like, hey, we're here to balance this experience, and
Yes.
to have the only concern in your entire life is what happens after you die. That is actually not a balanced perspective.
No.
To do everything to get into heaven is not a balanced
No.
perspective. To like think that there is nothing else besides this body is not a balanced perspective. And there are people that I love on very both ends of those spectrums that I absolutely love them. And that is their experience. And
Yeah.
they might be perfectly on the fence, like in the middle, in that zone. From my perspective, they might seem like one extreme, but they might actually be perfectly balanced in their own understanding of who they're supposed to be in this
Right.
world. So it's not a judgment at all. It's not a judgment. It's a inner guidance. Hey, where am I at right now? You know?
Yeah. How can you become more balanced with your human and divine nature? That is
Yeah.
so much of what I want to walk in the world and just show other people it's possible, right? And that we can be loving and open and inclusive and have different beliefs than other people, right? Like there's going to be a lot of people that are like, Lemuria is not a planet, you jerk. No. And I'm going to be like, that's totally fine if you don't want to believe that. Like it was a perspective that was introduced to me and I'm like, yeah, when I test into that, that feels accurate to me. That's
Yeah.
my experience. Yours
And
can be different.
who is anyone to take away anyone else's experience? Like, be your own truth of whatever that is. And everyone literally, and I do this with my guides too, because I can ask my guides the same question, and they, depending on who I'm asking, they will have a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with humans. Like these people are like, or these, they are people-ish, but they
Entities,
are on my
beings.
team together. They're like working collectively with me together, and they have completely different perspectives on the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's literally the same in the human realm. Like, everybody can have a freaking different perspective. And if you ever think that your truth is the truth and the only truth and nothing but the truth, that is the concern. So
I mean, I
allowing
like
everything
my
to be,
truth that all things are true. I think that's pretty true, that all things are true. But,
all
that's the
things are
hill
true.
I'm going to die on. So, is that everyone can believe what they want.
I love that one though. Okay, so there's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and then there's that is all true. So I don't know. Are those the two sides of the coin?
I don't know. Everything's true. I'm just going to stay there. So,
Yeah.
thank you for this conversation. I know several people are watching live. If you watch the replay and you have more questions about this, or like you want to talk to Charmaine or I about light language, aka glossolalia, I learned a new word thanks to this, and I hope you did too. I mean, anybody that watched this probably learned a new word or two. But we're here. We love to talk. I'm sure we're going to do more lives like this. So if you have other topics you'd love two queer neurodivergent people who walk into a live stream to talk about things, we're happy to.
I love that you got that in there.
Let's sneak it in there. Just So yes. Thank you for this, and thank you for your open-mindedness and your skepticism. I think both are essential to our ascension mission, that we have a healthy skepticism with an open-mindedness to find the balance of what is true for us in there. So
Thank
thank
you,
you for that.
Safrianna. I love hanging out with y'all.
Me too. I love you. All right. Until next time, people. Bye for now.